If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Winston Churchill. That would be an unbelievable dinner to have.
Like to say, like, be the change that you want to see in the world, right?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
So you've been doing this for about 20 years now, and you must have come across various experiences from all areas of, your clients' journeys and all. So what would you say has been the most rewarding part of your career so far?
Helping a client achieve a goal is unbelievably rewarding. You don't think that it's going to happen because you start working with a client and you go, okay, let's start this education savings plan with our very first $25 deposit. And then years and years go by and you get that call that says, hey, my daughter's going to university this fall. I need to start withdrawing on that plan. And you kind of forget, wow, I've been working with you for a long time. And, I've seen the pictures, I've heard the stories, kind of this like fly on the wall of your life. And it's really fantastic to see people's eyes light up when they've achieved that goal and you've helped shepherd them through maybe a couple of storms,
Jon,
right?
tell us about yourself. I mean, if you want to share your journey into the financial planning industry and what motivated you back in 2003.
It's funny how everything seems to go back to when you're a kid, right? What are you most adept at when you're a kid? Whether that's a sport or a science or an art or something. And I was always really good at math. It wasn't something I was trying to do, but I was the son of an accountant, so that probably had its impact.
Welcome to another episode of Elite Financial Voices powered by Advisors Marketing Mastery. Today, the esteemed guest that we have is Jon Helm. He's a certified financial planner with Raymond James, and he also hosts a Wealth Connection podcast on Spotify. So, Jon, I was looking at your profile over LinkedIn, and I saw that you started back in 2003 as a personal banking representative. So you've come a long way. It's been about 20 years you've been doing this now?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. It has been 20 years already. It's kind of wild to think about. I started as a personal banking rep, originally through telephone banking when that was more of a thing where you could call an account manager over the phone. And it was a way of putting myself through business school. So I was working full-time hours and working on a business and economics degree at the same time. It was a great intro to the industry because you have to see a lot of different spaces from lending and credit cards and obviously into GICs and mutual funds. And it gives you a very broad, diverse background real fast.
Right. So, Jon, what we'll try to do here today is I want to keep this a very open-ended, sort of a casual conversation and light-hearted conversation. We're not going to go into a lot of financial trends, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, not those technicalities today, because most people, they just feel that financial advisors, they just talk about this stuff all the time. So I'm trying to change a little bit of a perspective here and getting this opportunity, using this opportunity to show people that financial advisors are at the end of the day human beings, and they do live normal lives, right?
Yeah.
So I'll start off with a random question. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
That's a really interesting one. Yeah, it's funny, you were talking as I was thinking about, most clients don't need to see the technical prowess, right? We spend most of our time talking about just real world stuff. I spend maybe too much time thinking about how the world would be different if it wasn't for the heroics, I guess you'd call them, of Winston Churchill. That would be an unbelievable dinner to have, to understand the fog of war and all that was going on in World War II and how he had to deal with the fact that his empire had essentially fallen and he needed the help of the upcoming American empire to beat back evil. That would be a wild conversation. So that one comes to top of mind real fast if you could have that conversation, because so much came out of that. And then, the next one would be the immediate next emperor, essentially, if you think about President Eisenhower coming out of World War II, how those conversations and, reshaping how the world has existed since then, because we've had this unprecedented period of stability in North America because of all that went on. So those would be a couple of conversations I'd love to have. I mean, that's the first things that come to my mind, I guess.
Awesome, man. That's quite insightful. So, Jon, tell us about yourself. I mean, if you want to share your journey into the financial planning industry and what motivated you back in 2003 to, was it your educational background that, brought you into this industry? industry, or was it just, personal motivational or external motivational factors that brought you here?
It's funny how everything seems to go back to when you're a kid, right? What are you most adept at when you're a kid, whether that's a sport or a science or an art or something? And I was always really good at math. It wasn't something I was trying to do, but I was the son of an accountant, so that probably had its impact. And coming out of high school and thinking about what I was going to do with my life, I originally thought, well, I love to, work with numbers. I want to build stuff. Let's go be an engineer. And so I took a bunch of years of engineering school, really enjoyed it. However, the university I was going to required us to take a handful of economics classes in order to make us a so-called well-rounded professional. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really fell in love with the theory of everything that backs up economics and how everything plays into absolutely everything else. And then it really ignited I guess a curiosity in me to look at how money works and how it actually propels business around the world. And I just went down the rabbit hole. I never came out of it. It was one job after another, trying to get more and more exposure through financial services, through banking, personal financial advice, getting into product management and sales, and then all the way back to my roots on the retail investment advice side about 6 years ago now. Just always very curious about how money works and how economics make the world go round, and that's really what drove it. I've had a varied experience in this space. Now being very fortunate to live on the west coast of Canada, beautiful climate, very politically stable. I don't have a lot of the problems that many people around the world have. I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful family, and I'm a father of 3 beautiful kids, and we have a quiet little existence, really. And I think that's the mark of a lot of successful people that I work with, is that they have a pretty quiet existence and they slowly build wealth over time, and they don't need to be super flashy about it. Yep. And try and do good in their community. And so-called control the controllables, right? There's a lot of problems in the world, but what can I control? Well, I can control donating to my local food bank, and I can control volunteering at my preferred religious institution or whatever it is. Absolutely. Try and give back to the neighborhood around you. And that's really what I try to do. It's not more complicated than that. It doesn't really need to be, I don't think.
Like, just say, be the change that you want to see in the world, right?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Amazing, man. Amazing. So since you've been in the industry and you actually, I've not seen a lot of advisors and brokers who got into this by choice. Either they went through a experience where they did not have any planning in place, and they, someone died and they just had to look into what insurance is, what financial planning is, how money works, and all that stuff. So you've been doing this for about 20 years now, and you must have come across various experiences from all areas of, your clients' journeys and all. So what would you say has been the most rewarding part of your career so far?
Helping a client achieve a goal is unbelievably rewarding. You don't think that it's going to happen because you start working with a client and you go, okay, let's start this education savings plan with our very first $25 deposit. And then years and years go by and you get that call that says, hey, my daughter's going to university this fall. I need to start withdrawing on that plan. And you kind of forget, wow, I've been working with you for a long time. And, I've seen the pictures, I've heard the stories, kind of this fly on the wall of your life. And it's really fantastic to see people's eyes light up when they've achieved that goal, and you've helped shepherd them through maybe a couple of storms, right? And we've all seen what those have been in the last number of years with, from pandemics to financial crisis. There's a lot of volatility out there that people need that emotional backstop. And I take a lot of joy in helping people get through those tough times. I'm no stranger to tough times myself. I think everybody has had some sort of struggle at some point in their life, or yet to have that struggle. And so trying to be empathetic to what people are going through and the emotional side that makes them want to make a bad decision financially, and try and help work through that. That's unbelievably rewarding, and it helps me sleep really well at night when I'm thinking about the long-term picture.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing that you can do for anyone is leaving a positive impact in their lives, or having a positive impact in their lives, right?
Yeah, or trying your darndest to do that, right? I mean, you can't bat 1,000. I mean, I use too many baseball analogies, but you can't bat 1,000. We're just trying to get on base, right? And if you can consistently do the right things, good things will happen over a long period of time.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. While you mentioned that you had to go through some challenges and struggles yourself as well, and because this is about the elite financial voices, so what have been the biggest challenges that you have faced in your career so far, and how did you overcome them?
I think one of the first real big challenges that I had was trying to find a way back to the investment advice side of the business. So I had taken a turn away from individual investment advice and gotten into product sales, and which is really rewarding and it's fun from a like an ego perspective, because you get to have really high-end technical conversations, which is, you know, it satisfies my need to be this pontificator. But when you're talking about individual investment advice, it's really sitting down and kind of being their therapist almost and working through a problem, helping them see the long term. And so getting back onto this side when you've had a really successful career on the business to business side is difficult because everyone has a household budget, me included, right? And so making that sacrifice to leave a pretty cushy corporate job and start a business to help other people manage their finances, that was a really scary endeavor, I must admit. And, you know, it was about 6 years ago now, and I remember it very well that fall, going into that Christmas season, knowing that I would have no income that Christmas and having to build a business up from scratch was absolutely the most terrifying thing I've done professionally. And I look back on it now and even think that guy's, you know, 6 years ago me was nuts to do it. It's worked out well, but holy smoke, when you think back about how the finances of that transition went, absolutely terrifying. So there's a lot of certainly you know, some touchy conversations at home a few times, trying to make sure that everyone is on board with what we're doing. You know, right size the lifestyle for a while so that things get better down the road. But that's, you know, a pretty similar plight to most business owners, right? At some point, they're going to have to take a big risk on their business, and that might be borrow a bunch of money to expand. That might be they're going through a recession or their particular industry is retooling, and they're forced into making some pretty tough decisions about their own lifestyle or employees or the type of product that they put out there for clients. And that can be a terrifying thing for all of us. So I've gone through those moments myself and in my household, and can relate to a lot of these business owners that I end up meeting, you know, in their 40s and 50s as they're going through similar things.
No, I can absolutely relate with your experience. Even though I started I got into this agency space back in 2018, and I had to leave my full-time job, and that was October of 2018.
Oh wow!
So I left 31st of October 2018 was my last working day. I left my job and signed up 0 clients in November and December.
Terrifying,
nothing
right?
incoming, and it was terrifying. But at the same time, I also knew it's Christmas season. You know, people are on vacations. They're not gonna sign up for new business or anything like that. So things started picking up in early 2019, and since then we've never looked back. We've only grown from there. So we're now a team of 20 plus individuals who come together and help our clients. So,
that's fantastic.
So you mentioned that switching over and going independent was one of the most biggest challenge that you faced, right?
Yeah, so we had done that as a team. We left the captive agency that we were at a couple of years ago now in order to move the practice to Raymond James. And Raymond James Canada is the largest independent in Canada next to the big 5 banks that operate here. Very similar structure to the United States, where you have the big 10 in the US that control majority of distribution. We have a similar thing, but there's 5 of them here. And Raymond James was a perfect fit for us because personally, I've got a lot of family and friends in the United States and in Canada. Raymond James is the leader in cross-border US-Canada advice, which is an increasingly large group of potential clients. You know, we were talking earlier, there are somewhere between 2 and 3 million households in North America that are impacted by the Canadian-US border for their own household finances. So these are Canadians living in the US, Americans living in Canada, and because of the regulatory framework, they'll often have multiple advisors, tax, financial advisors, lawyers in both countries. And it makes it really complicated. And so one of the things that we've been striving to do is simplify that process, because one thing I've discovered over the last 20 years is that people that don't like managing their investments day after day don't like it at all. Like there's a huge delta between the DIY investor and the person that's looking for a financial advisor. There's very little middle ground of people that are just trying to validate what you're doing. They typically try to outsource it. And if they have to have a financial advisor on both sides of the border, a tax accountant on both sides of the border, and a lawyer, it becomes a lot to manage. And so what we've done is try and build a business that can help simplify that. Raymond James was a perfect solution for us because they are the leader in this space, one of the largest independent advisory firms in the world, and has provided a fantastic independent structure for us. And, you know, I'm not here to give a great big huge infomercial on it or anything, but it's, you know, being as independent as possible seems like the future of wealth management also, because clients are all requiring different types of things in their portfolios, and they're curious about different types of investments. You can see this huge rise in alternative investments, for example. That's everything from option strategies, commodities, physical assets like farmland, and all sorts of other stuff. So, everyone thinks hedge fund when you think alternative, but there's a lot of different things that fall into that alternative bucket, which I often talk about as a risk reducing bucket in your portfolio. And so to be able to have the independence to do virtually anything that a client needs done was really important when I thought about what does the next 20 years of my career look like, and how do we build an even more elite financial practice where we can help, multimillionaires on either side of this border and make sure that their life is simplified financially, so that it gives them the peace of mind to go do the stuff that actually matters to them, right? Hanging out with their family, going on trips, dedicating all their time to their business, whatever it may be. They typically don't want to worry about their long-term financial picture because they're more concerned about right now.
Gotcha. And I'd also like to take your perspective on how things have changed for you, especially after COVID. What changed, what didn't change, and how's it going since COVID happened?
Yeah, COVID, man, that feels like the last 4 years are like 20 years, right? It's been a slog. 2020 was a pretty wild time. I remember it very distinctly because I had taken my family to Mexico on a spring break vacation. So it's early March 2020, just before lockdown sets in, right? Mexico hadn't really thought much or reported much on the pandemic at that point. So we thought, let's take this family vacation anyway. And I remember standing in the pool. My wife goes, "Why are you so grumpy today?" And I go, "Well, I don't know if you've noticed the markets the last 5 days, but our clients are going to be very upset at what's going on. And the airport might shut down in 2 days. We got to get out of here." And so it was this scramble to get back to Victoria. And then you go into lockdown for a couple of weeks that lasts months and months. It was a surreal experience that I don't know if anyone on earth has really dealt with properly yet. Like it's kind of strange to have an entire planet with PTSD. But here we are and trying to figure it out. But one of the best silver linings that I talk about a lot has been exactly this. We've never met in person. We might never meet in person, but we can develop a friendship online. We can do a podcast, a video podcast or whatever, and we can stay in touch with one another. And people are very amenable to that change in how we operate society. And I think that's pretty fantastic because there's a lot of people out there that you wouldn't ever meet because they just don't live in your town, but you might get along great with. And so it's provided a huge amount of opportunity for businesses that can embrace digital experiences to go out there and grow and do good in other places other than, the 5-mile radius around your house. So absolutely. I think that has been the biggest difference, in the way that we communicate with folks virtually over Zoom and Teams and doing podcasts and sending out video notes. People are reading emails at a higher rate than they were previously. And it's interesting in our annual surveys that we put out to clients, the change of attitude towards how they want to be communicated with. 5-6 years ago, I would have said majority of my clients, they want to come in and see me or they want to talk on the phone. And now last year's survey I got back, 92% of our clients said the number one thing that we want to get from you is an email.
Wow.
That is a huge paradigm shift in just a matter of a couple of years. And so we started sending a weekly email because that's what people asked for. And that ability to listen to people and change change on the fly and go, okay, well, let's establish this weekly email has really, made the business more functional and efficient, I think. We can serve a slightly larger number of clients more effectively and anywhere. And that's most applicable with the cross-border clientele because, if you're someone that has decided, okay, I've spent the last 10 years living in Portland and now I want to live in Vancouver. Okay, who can I deal with there that's licensed on both sides of the border? Your pool of potential advisors might only be 30 or 40 different advisors. And so you might not be dealing with somebody in the exact same community as you, but there's increasingly capacity to do that. So that's been, I think, the biggest change that we've all experienced, right?
Right. So I'm assuming you are now taking clients anywhere from Canada and US. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah. Like I'm registered in California, so I can take clients virtually any state. There are some states with some pretty wonky securities laws that we don't tread into. DC is an example of that. I'm licensed in 6 Canadian provinces, so all of Western Canada, Ontario, and a few of the maritime provinces. And that's really a function of a lot of people during the pandemic decided to move. Like I now have clients from all the way from Victoria, British Columbia to Gander, Newfoundland, which if you tried to fly from, and I have done this, fly from Victoria to Gander, it'll be like a 19-hour travel day and you won't have left Canada. So it's pretty wild how many people that we can deal with across the country and managing these different time zones. 6 Canadian provinces and essentially 48 states, that is what we could operate in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
it's just amazing to see, the kind of opportunities that virtual brings to us, right? So were you also taking clients like this prior COVID as well, like from
Virtually?
anywhere? Yeah, virtually.
I mean, we had a handful of clients, as I think every advisor does in a few other provinces. They typically are friends and family that you'll see once a year just because. But I never marketed somewhere outside of my immediate vicinity, right? And so a vast majority of our clients were pretty close by, and in the pandemic, we actually changed our offices from kind of the downtown office building structure with an elevator to a ground floor retail unit in the community that had the most number of our clients. So we did a big mapping exercise and discovered, okay, if we rent that little location over there that used to be a pet store and revamp it and make it all fancy, well, 46% of our clients live within a 2-block radius. So they can just walk over and we control the entire environment. Nobody has to worry about walking into an elevator or being around other people or paying for downtown parking. And so it made a lot of sense. And that was a big shift that we did in the pandemic physically. But especially a lot of our older clientele really appreciated it, right? Because there was a lingering fear around COVID for years. It really feels like it's just kind of evaporated in the last 9 or 12 months.
True. Very true.
And so being ground floor retail has really helped to the business in that standpoint. And also you get the use of essentially hung out a billboard in a community because you're right there. And most financial advisors, especially, portfolio manager or senior wealth managers, they tend to be in the ivory towers downtown with a great view, albeit, but it's a bit of a different experience for the client.
Right. So do you still have a physical location?
We do. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's amazing how much more I work remotely. I don't know if you can tell on the video how tanned I am, but we spent the last 2 weeks in northern BC where it was like 40 degrees Celsius, which is, 105 or something Fahrenheit. So we got some sunshine, but I really didn't put an out of office on the entire time I was away because I stay tapped into the markets constantly. And so I would wake up and have my coffee in the morning and respond to client emails. And then we take the kids out for, a swim or a boat ride or something in the afternoon. And so it does change your ability to work from anywhere. But I think we'll always have at least a small physical space because you still have to see people.
Eventually. True. So, all right, John, we are almost like halfway through our dedicated time for this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play a quick game called Financial Fast Facts. I'll ask you a series of rapid fire questions and you need to answer as quickly as possible. Let's go. What's the first financial product you ever bought? Stocks or real estate?
Stocks.
If you had to invest $10,000 right now, where would you put it?
US small cap.
Credit cards, friends or enemy?
Useful tool to build your credit, but can be a lot of people's enemy.
Gold or cryptocurrency?
Interesting. Crypto.
What's your guilty pleasure purchase?
Golf accessories.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
And what's the one item that you cannot live without?
That dang iPhone.
What's the most underrated financial advice you have ever received?
You know what? A long time ago, someone told me that your investments are like a bar of soap. The more you touch them, the smaller it'll get. And I find that very true. I just set it and forget it.
Gotcha. Okay, so we got last two. What's your favorite book on finance?
There's so many. There's a lot of them behind me. I should cheat and look around. Common Sense Economics by Kenneth Galbraith was one of the first things I read.
Good. And who's your financial hero?
My financial hero? Oh, wow. You know what? This sounds corny. It's probably my dad. He taught me a lot about how money works as a chartered accountant, and I still rely on him a lot to this day.
All right. Amazing. Awesome, man. I hope you enjoyed that segment.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. So let's.
It was just going to get drowned out, and so I find as much as I'll probably continue doing those types of campaigns, they are very difficult to make successful. And look for advice. If you're somebody that's thinking about doing that, find somebody that might be an existing client that has some experience in it, or a friend or whatever. But make sure you're optimized to make it work as best as possible. The most effective thing I've found is actually LinkedIn. I know that there's a heck of a lot of accountants and lawyers and financial advisors on LinkedIn that uses it primarily. And I look at my analytics, and most of the people that watch me are investment managers and people in my same industry. But it's amazing how you can reach out to people, they can check out who you are and go, yeah, you're verified, or you look pretty legit. I'll respond to this message, and you can strike up some conversation. And this is a perfect example of that. And I've had so many others where, I've been talking with some people that I'll probably never meet, but built a wonderful relationship with online, that are in related industries in other countries. And you can get a lot of potential referrals or centers of influence from social media like that.
So you mentioned Google Ads. So have you done anything else? Like, what has been your favorite marketing campaign that you guys have done and it was really successful?
You know, I still am a big believer of direct mail. I know it sounds wild, but it still does have a pretty good reach, because if you can make something that doesn't look like trash, there's very little that goes to a human's house these days that isn't total trash, right? You get all your household bills electronically these days. So if it comes in the mailbox, it's a flyer for your local hardware store or a realtor flyer or something like that. So if you can make something stand out a little bit or be personalized in some way, that has worked quite well. Make sure you beta test it though. You know, make sure there's different versions of it out in the field at all times so that you can see what's working and what's not. So that's a great marketing tool. One that I've found a lot of success with is we have an annual client event, an in-person client event, where we bring in a guest speaker. I'll talk for a little while, they'll talk for a little while, and we try and keep it light. It often gets too it gets into the macro weeds. I wouldn't say it's a microeconomic thing, but
yeah,
you know, everyone always wants to talk about where's the dollar going, where's oil going, all that stuff. But having those in-person client events where they're able to invite a friend, and even if they don't invite a friend, they come, they have a great meal and good experience. They get to see a bunch of other folks, and they tend to end up with a fair amount of referrals afterward. So those have been successful things. It's a challenge though, as you know, right? It seems to be in all sort of different prongs are having to go at the same time. You know,
right.
The reason why we launched the podcast and we can promote that online, it's got a bit of traction. You know, I don't think I'm going to be Joe Rogan anytime soon, but it's a fun little thing to do. It's creative and allows me to talk to folks that I might not get to talk to otherwise. And so that's been a lot of fun, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from clients that have pushed it out to their friends that we've ended up having clients because of. I think the most fun thing that I've done for marketing, which I'm pretty excited for you to be doing the same thing now as well, because like we said at the beginning, it gives this social proof to people. They can check out who you are and get a sense of you before they ever even call you. Yeah. And I feel like Americans are a little bit more willing to be sold something. They'll hear you out on a sales pitch, whereas Canadians really aren't. Like they want to research you to within an inch of your life before they even pick up the phone and call you. And so this is a wonderful medium to be able to provide that information. You're going, okay, who is this person? Do you even like? Can I stand listening to their voice or looking at their face for any period of time? And that gives them that ability to kind of vet who they're going to work with. And so I think that's going to be a growing source of our marketing moving forward.
Right. So you mentioned that you've done Google Ads, you do direct mails, then you've also started a podcast. So where do you, like the type of clientele that you typically work with, or you ideally want to work with, where do you feel do they congregate? Is it LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram? What social platform do you feel they mostly congregate on?
I wish they used more Instagram. I don't think they do. I think they use Instagram to mostly follow their grandkids. Facebook seems to be very popular. It is becoming more and more expensive to effectively advertise on, but it is much more popular. I'd say the social media that I see the most use out of is LinkedIn. Our typical client, you know, I'll give you a rundown, is 58 years old, you know, either an executive professional of some sort or a business owner that they're getting ready to succession plan out of their existing job or business, or they've already got the plan in place and we're working with them on that intergenerational shift. And they tend to have, you know, a couple of dollars to scratch together. And they're going from maybe that first time that they've ever drawn an income not from their business. You know, a lot of business owners will have a ton of real estate and then the physical business themselves that they draw an income from. And then they retire, they sell all the buildings, they sell the business, and now they're left with $5, $10, $15 million. And they go, okay, so now what? Where do I get my paycheck from? And you have to go, this is a total paradigm shift as to how you get paid every month. And it's a lot of education in that space. But a lot of those folks are on LinkedIn and they're fairly receptive to the right kind of messaging. You just have to be human about it. You got to say hello. You know, hi, my name is John. It's as corny as it comes, but the more just genuine it is, the more traction you get.
You know, if you were to ever have a marketing partner with you, what would you specifically look for in a digital marketing partner?
You know, I think the biggest thing is helping someone keep their brand and message consistent across all platforms. platforms. Everything from your weekly newsletter to clients to the podcast to the Google ad to the LinkedIn posts. It all needs to work together. And, a lot of people can look to the presidential campaigns that are going on. The people that work on those campaigns behind the scenes that you never know who they are these digital marketers and brand specialists that work to keep the message tight. And it's not because, you don't have a lot of things to say. It's more because if you're trying to be associated with being a center for financial advice, you can't also be talking about, gardening products or something. It needs to be consolidated really effectively, because the old thing about sales is you got to tell them and then tell them what you told them and then tell them again. Yep. And people need a few different interactions and that consistency of approach before they'll start trusting you, right? And they're not just going to say, hey, I saw that you hung out a shingle on the street there and that you're a financial advisor, let me give you all my money. Yeah. That never happens.
And especially when you're doing it online, there has to be that know, like, and trust factor pre-built prior to them getting on a call with you.
Yeah. Like I've heard it be called trust stacking before. It is. It's just like you're building upon previous messages and they see that consistency. I think that's the biggest thing that people forget, because they just want to start, putting out all these different ideas they've got. I can tell you all the different things I know about the world of finance, and people don't really care about that stuff, right? They want to make sure that you're consistent in a steady hand that they can trust over a long period of time.
All right, John. So we are almost out of time here in no time. The final thoughts that I'd like from you would be like, what advice would you give to someone who is like starting out in the financial planning industry? What would be your 2 cents for them?
I'd say find a mentor as fast as you can. That was one of the biggest things that helped me early in my career. When I joined the full service brokerage side, I found a great mentor that had been in the business at that time about 25 years. He's still in the business today. And I learned so much in such a short period of time, and continued to try and find other mentors throughout my time to try and glean information off of. Because when you're really young in a business that's this complicated, you don't have the luxury of not knowing stuff. You have to try and accumulate knowledge as fast as humanly possible. And so read everything, completely immerse yourself in it, and find a good mentor that'll help, show you what really matters. Because it's not the Sharpe ratio of that ETF that you think matters. It's, how to talk to people, how to understand what they're actually saying to you. Yep. And that's probably the biggest learning that I ever got, was you just got to shut up and listen. Like, they'll tell you everything that you need to know if you just listen to them instead of trying to tell them all the stuff because they don't care about that.
I can absolutely be with you on that. Like, finding a mentor, this is the only way to cut your learning curve in half, whatever, or maybe even less than that. That's the only way to do it. So if you want to cut down your learning curve, everyone who's listening to this podcast, go find a mentor. John, my final question here for you would be today, what are your goals for the next year, both personally and professionally?
Personally, I've definitely got to get my golf handicap down. It's a little silly how high it still is, but I don't have a lot of time. We got kids and a million different activities and running a busy practice here. So from the practice standpoint, I'm looking to just consistently grow. I think that we're at about 3/4 capacity of our practice. And so we have room to get bigger, and I'm very excited about that. I'm hoping that our marketing efforts can continue to grow, and I'm very excited to have, a bunch more fun podcast guests. But I don't have a big, hairy, audacious goal. Maybe I should, but I'm not trying to quintuple my assets in a year or something like that. It's good, consistent growth. Yep. And on the personal side, just being able to stay healthy and be able to be there for my kids' activities.
And on the final note, if someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, the best way is to reach out over helmfinancial.ca. You can contact us there. We've got our Calendly link right to our calendars. Email and phone number there is perfect. So yeah, just helmfinancial.ca.
Thank you so much, John, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing your insights and experiences. And for our listeners, if you're interested in learning more about growing your own financial planning business or need support with digital marketing or recruitment campaigns, feel free to reach out to us. We specialize in helping professionals like John achieve their growth goals. I'll hopefully see you on the next episode.